The battle had ended hours ago, but the smoke still lingered in the broken fields. The sky above was a dull shade of red, heavy with the ash of burning machines. Human forces had fought hard against the alien armies, but the land itself seemed to carry scars from both sides. Bodies of steel and stone lay across the ground, weapons left behind where soldiers had fallen. Among the wreckage lay David, a human soldier barely able to move. His leg burned with pain where shrapnel had torn through his armor. The battlefield was empty now, his unit gone, and he had no strength to follow. He pressed his hand against the wound, breathing slowly, trying not to close his eyes. Sleep here meant death. For a long time, he thought he would simply remain where he was until the end came. But then he heard footsteps. Not the heavy march of soldiers, but light, careful steps moving across the ruins. He forced his eyes open. A figure stood before him. It was not human. She was tall and slender, her skin faintly pale with a silver glow beneath it. Her eyes were bright, the kind that seemed to see more than just the body, but the spirit beneath. She carried no weapon, only a satchel slung across her shoulder. Her long hands held herbs, cloths, and strange crystal tools. David tried to move back, fear tightening his chest, but his body refused to obey. The figure knelt beside him, setting her tools down carefully. "You are hurt," she said in a calm voice. Her words were soft, slightly accented, but clear enough for him to understand. David blinked at her. You are one of them." The healer tilted her head. "I'm Lena. I'm not a fighter. I heal." He almost laughed, though it came out as a rough cough. "And why would you heal me? I'm human. We are at war." Lena's expression did not change. "War breaks bodies. My duty is to mend them. It does not matter if they are for my people or yours." David stared at her, unable to believe her words, yet as she spoke, she was already working. She placed cool hands near his wound, her touch gentle but firm. From her satchel she pulled a soft cloth soaked with a glowing liquid. The pain dulled. As soon as it touched his skin, he let out a shaky breath. "Feels like fire fading." "It will hold for now," she replied, wrapping the cloth round his leg with practiced hands. "But you cannot stay here. Soldiers will return, searching for survivors." David shook his head. "I cannot walk. Leave me. Save yourself." Lena's silver eyes lifted to meet his. "I will not leave you." Her tone carried no hesitation. It was not a promise made out of kindness, but one spoken as truth. Without another word, she slipped his arm over her shoulder. Though she looked fragile, her strength surprised him. Slowly, with her support, David rose from the ground. Every step was pain, but she guided him away from the battlefield. They moved through broken streets, past houses half buried in dust. The ruins whispered of lives once lived here, families gone long before the war had touched this place. David leaned heavily on her, his armor weighing him down. Still, Lena did not falter. At last, they reached the edge of the village hidden among the hills. It was quiet, built from stone and crystal, glowing softly with lights that needed no fire. A few figures watched as they entered. Some frowned at the sight of a human soldier in their healer's care. Murmurs rose, words David could not understand. Lena ignored them. She led him into a small house built of smooth stone, the air inside smelling of herbs and clean water. She lowered him onto a bed carved from crystal, covering it with soft woven cloth. David leaned back, exhausted, his breath uneven. He had expected anger, maybe even death. But not this, not care. Lena washed his wound again, pressing strange powders that sealed the torn flesh. She worked in silence, her movements steady. For the first time since the battle began, David felt his fear ease. When she finished, he whispered, "Why are you doing this? Your people will not thank you for helping me." Lena placed her tools aside and sat quietly. "I did not heal for thanks. I heal because life is precious. Yours, mine, even those who fight. Pain does not ask who you are. It only hurts. My task is to end it." Her words lingered in the quiet room. David turned his head to look at her. She seemed so calm, so unshaken by the hatred between their kinds. He wondered how someone could live in the middle of war and still speak of life as something worth saving. The night grew darker outside, but within the healer's house, a strange peace held. David drifted into sleep, his body surrendering to rest. His last thought before his eyes closed was that he had seen many things in war: fire, blood, fear, but never someone like Lena. When morning came, he woke to the sound of water being poured into a bowl. Lena was there, preparing more herbs. She turned when she noticed him awake. "You live," she said softly. David gave a faint smile. "Thanks to you." Lena only inclined her head. "Rest more. Healing takes time." As she moved about the room, light from the rising sun touched her face. For the first time, David noticed how her eyes seemed to catch the glow, shining like silver fire. He said nothing, but a thought stirred quietly inside him. She had pulled him from the edge of death, carried him through danger, and now guarded his life among strangers who did not welcome him. She was unlike anyone he had ever met. And though he would not admit it aloud yet, he felt a sense of safety beside her that no weapon had ever given him. The war still raged beyond the hills, but in this small healer's house, something different had begun. Something neither David nor Lena could yet name. Days passed in the healer's house. The war outside did not stop, but within the quiet walls, time felt slower. David's wounds began to close under Lena's careful work. She never rushed. Every movement was calm, steady, and filled with purpose. At first, David spoke little. He was a soldier used to orders, to the company of men who shouted and fought. Here, silence ruled. The healer moved without sound, mixing herbs, pressing cloths, checking his bandages. Yet, as the silence stretched, David found himself wanting to fill it. One evening, while Lena crushed leaves into powder, David broke the quiet. On Earth, he said slowly, we use machines for healing, metal tools, bright lights, and medicine made in factories, but nothing smells like this. He lifted his head slightly, breathing in the soft scent of herbs that filled the room. It feels alive. Lena glanced at him, then returned to her work. Machines heal quickly. My way takes time. But sometimes time is what the body needs. David nodded, though she did not see it. You are right. In war, time is the one thing no one gives. They patch you, send you back. No chance to rest, no chance to breathe. She looked at him then, her silver eyes steady. And yet you are still alive. Because of you, he said without hesitation. Her hands paused for a moment before continuing. She placed the powder into a bowl and mixed it with water, creating a thick paste. She applied it to his wound, her touch light but firm. David hissed softly at the sting, then relaxed as the pain faded. You speak much, Lena said after a while. David gave a small laugh. Soldiers talk. If we do not, the silence eats us. Out there, silence means danger. Here, it feels different. Lena tilted her head. Here, silence means peace. The words lingered in the air. David studied her face. She rarely smiled, rarely changed her calm expression, but her eyes carried a depth that pulled him in. He wanted to know what she thought when she worked, what memories she carried, why she chose healing in the middle of endless war. The next day, David sat up with effort. His strength was returning. He looked around the small stone house and noticed things he had missed before. Small carvings lined the shelved shapes of stars, rivers, and birds. A woven cloth hung on the wall, patterned with lines that reminded him of constellations. These, he said, pointing to the carvings, are they yours? Lena shook her head. My mother made them. She believed every carving carries memory. To keep them close is to keep her close. David's voice softened. She is gone. Lena nodded once. The war took her. David lowered his gaze. He had no answer, only silence. After a moment, he said quietly, I am sorry. Lena did not reply, but her hand slowed as she placed herbs back into their jars. For a moment, the air in the room felt heavier. David wondered if he had said too much, but then she spoke again. You have family? The question surprised him. He had not thought of them in weeks. The war kept his mind locked on survival. Yes, he said at last, a sister, younger than me. She liked to draw. She would sit by the sea and sketch the waves. I promised her I would bring her a star one day. I never did. Lina's eyes rested on him. She waits for you? I do not know, David admitted. Messages stopped when the fighting grew worse. Maybe she thinks I'm gone already. The healer placed a fresh bandage on his leg. Her hands gentle. Then live, she said quietly. Do not let her lose you to war. David met her gaze, something tightening in his chest. He nodded, unable to find better words. That night, as the wind moved outside, David found himself speaking again. He told her about Earth, the forests that stretched like oceans of green, the cities filled with lights, the laughter of children playing in the streets. He spoke of music, of voices rising together, of how even in dark times, humans found ways to sing. Lina listened. She rarely asked questions, but he could see her eyes brighten as he described places she had never seen. When he spoke of oceans, her lips parted slightly, as if she were picturing waves for the first time. Water that moves without end, she murmured. Here, rivers are small. To think of water without walls. She shook her head softly. It is hard to imagine. David smiled faintly. If you saw it, you would never forget. The sea is alive. It breathes, it roars, it whispers. Sometimes it feels like it is speaking only to you. For the first time, he thought he saw a flicker of wonder cross her face. She turned away quickly, returning to her herbs, but he noticed it. The bond between them grew slowly, like a seed pushing through stone. David spoke, Lina listened. And though her words were few, each one carried weight. She was unlike anyone he had met, human or otherwise. One afternoon, when the light from the setting sun poured into the house, David tried to stand without her help. His legs shook, but he managed a step. Lina was there instantly, steadying him with her hand. Not yet, she said firmly. I need to walk, David replied. You need to heal, she countered. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither spoke. Then David gave a tired smile. You are right, you always are. Something almost like amusement touched her expression, so brief he almost missed it. The days continued in this rhythm. War still burned outside, but within the healer's home, a quiet world formed between them. David no longer feared her silence. He began to find comfort in it, and Lina, though she still held her calm mask, began to linger longer when he spoke. Her hands paused when he laughed. Her eyes stayed on him a little more than before. David noticed. Though he said nothing, what began as survival was becoming something else. Something neither of them fully understood, but both could feel. And though the war pressed closer with every passing day, in that quiet space, hope began to take root. The night was quiet in the healer's village, far away. The echo of war could still be heard, distant blasts, faint rumbles that shook the air like thunder, but here the silence wrapped around the small house. Like a shield, David lay on the bed, half awake, staring at the faint glow of crystals in the wall. His body was stronger now. The wound still ached, but each day the pain lessened. He could sit, even stand with Lina's help, yet in the stillness of night, the pain seemed sharper, reminding him of how close he had been to death. Lina sat beside him, her long hands mixing herbs in a small bowl. The soft sound of stone grinding against stone filled the room. She had not spoken for some time. She never wasted words. David watched her, the way her hair fell forward when she leaned, the steady rhythm of her work. You never tire? He asked at last, his voice low. She looked up briefly. Healing is my task. If I stop, you suffer. David gave a small smile. I already suffered enough on the battlefield. You pull me back from it. She returned to her herbs, saying nothing. David shifted, trying to ease the pressure on his leg. The silence stretched again, but this time he did not want it to last. He had been thinking of something for days, holding it back, unsure if it was right to say. But the words pressed at him, asking to be freed. Lina, he began softly, on my world, when we see something rare, something so striking it makes us forget the pain around us. We speak of it. We call it beautiful. Her hand slowed, but she did not raise her eyes. David's voice grew firmer. You are beautiful, not just here, but in any galaxy. The words hung between them, simple yet heavy. Lena froze. For a moment, her fingers stopped moving, the herb in her hand forgotten. Her head lowered slightly, as if she did not trust herself. To look at him. David waited, heart beating faster than it should for a man still weak. He thought she might tell him to be silent, or that such words had no place between them. But when she finally lifted her face, her eyes betrayed her. Her lips pressed together, but the corners curved just slightly, a smile, faint and unwilling. Yet there. She turned away quickly, as though hiding it, but it was too late. David had seen. He let out a soft laugh. You smiled. No, she said firmly, though her voice carried a note of uncertainty. Yes, David answered, still smiling himself. You tried to stop it, but you did. Lena busied herself with the herbs again, grinding faster than before. Your words are strange. My people do not speak them. We do not call others as you do. Then your people are missing something, David said gently, because it is true. She glanced at him sharply, as if warning him to end the subject, but her eyes softened quickly. She looked away again, shoulders tense, for a long time. Neither spoke. The silence felt different now, not heavy, not cold, but filled with something new. David lay back, closing his eyes, still smiling faintly. Lana's hands shook once as she worked, though she forced them steady again. Later, when she brought the bowl to him, she avoided his gaze. Drink this, it will ease the pain. David took it, his fingers brushing hers for just a second. She pulled her hand back too quickly, as though the touch burned. He sipped the bitter liquid, then set the bowl aside. Do you always hide your smile? He asked softly. Lena turned her back to him, placing her tools in order. Smiles are not needed. They are weakness. They distract from duty. David shook his head. They are not weakness. A smile can heal more than medicine sometimes. I have seen men on the edge of despair rise again because someone smiled at them. Her hands paused for the briefest moment, then resumed their work. She gave no answer. But David could not forget the sight, the faint curve of her lips, the light in her silver eyes when she failed to hide it. It had been more powerful than any drug, more soothing than the strongest medicine. The next day, their rhythm continued. David told stories of Earth again, of mountains that touched the clouds, of storms that rolled across plains with endless thunder. Lena listened, quiet as always, but now David watched her more closely. Every time he spoke of beauty, of sunsets, of music, of laughter, her hands would slow, as though the words touched something within her. Once, when he described the way children on Earth would run through fields, chasing each other with laughter that carried into the sky, Lana's lips curved again before she caught herself. She looked down quickly, hiding her face behind her hair. David smiled at the sight, but said nothing. He did not want her to retreat. As evening fell, they sat together near the window. Outside, stars began to appear in the red-tinted sky. David leaned back, his legs stretched out, and looked at the stars above. Your world has the same stars as mine, he said quietly, yet they look different here. On Earth, they are cold lights. Here, they seem warmer, closer. Lena followed his gaze. Her eyes softened as she looked at the night sky. We are taught the stars are guardians. They watch, even when the world below burns. David turned to her, watching her face in the glow of starlight. And what do you believe? She hesitated, then answered, I believe the stars do not care, but they remind us that even in darkness, there is light. Her words struck him. They were simple, yet carried the weight of someone who had lived long in war. He spoke before he could stop himself. Then you are like the stars, light and darkness. This time, Lena did not hide her reaction quickly enough. The smile returned, small but real, and her eyes shone as if the stars themselves had touched them. David's chest tightened at the sight. He wanted to hold the moment, to keep it safe, away from the war that threatened to crush it. But before he could say more, a sound came from outside, the sharp call of voices, the distant march of feet. Lina's head turned instantly, her calm expression returning like a shield. Soldiers, she whispered. David's heart sank. The brief warmth of the night turned cold. Danger was drawing close again, yet even as fear rose, he remembered her smile, a fragile, hidden spark in the middle of endless war, and he swore to himself he would not let that spark be lost. The sound of marching grew clearer with every passing minute. David could hear it from inside Lina's small stone house, the heavy rhythm of boots on the ground, voices shouting orders, the faint metallic clatter of weapons. The war had been far away for many days, but now it pressed against the edge of the healer's village. Lina stood by the doorway. Her silver eyes narrowed. Her face was calm, but David could see the tension in the way she held her hands at her side. She was listening, measuring the distance, calculating how much time they had before soldiers reached the village. "They are searching," she said quietly, "looking for survivors, for enemies in hiding." David pushed himself upright on the bed. His legs still ached, but he could stand now, even walk a little if he leaned against the wall. "Then they will find me," he said. Lina turned her head sharply toward him. "You must not be seen." David gave a dry laugh. "How can I not be? I am human. In the middle of your village, if they search every house, they will find me here. And when they do, it will not be only me who suffers." The truth hung heavy in the room. Lina did not answer right away. She knew he was right. Her people had strict rules. If the enemy caught her hiding a human soldier, the punishment would fall on her and possibly the whole village. She stepped closer to him, her voice firm. "You are not ready to leave. If you walk into the forest alone, you will not survive." David met her gaze. "Better me than your people. I will not let you pay the price for helping me." Lina shook her head. "I will not let you throw your life away." The argument circled between them. David wanted to protect her. Lina wanted to protect him. The sound of soldiers outside grew louder, and the villagers gathered in the square. Their voices carried through the air, a mix of fear and anger. By nightfall, the elders called a meeting in the Hall of Stone. David remained hidden in Lina's house, but through the thin walls he heard the voices rise. "Why has she brought him here?" One man shouted. "He is human. He is the enemy. He was dying." Lina's voice replied, calm but steady. "I did what a healer must do, and now you put us all at risk." Another woman said bitterly, "If the soldiers discover him, they will burn this village." There was silence, then the voice of the oldest elder, deep and weary. "The healer has always followed her duty, but this choice has placed us in danger. If the human stays, we will all pay." David closed his eyes. The words struck him harder than any wound. He could not let them suffer because of him. When Lina returned from the meeting, her face gave nothing away, but David saw the exhaustion in her shoulders. She set down her tools and began to prepare herbs again, though he knew she did it only to keep her hands busy. "They want me gone," David said quietly. Lina did not answer. "They are right," he continued. "I should leave before soldiers search the houses. If I go now, at least the blame will not fall on you." Finally, Lina turned toward him, her eyes fierce. "You cannot walk more than a few steps without pain. The forest is filled with patrols. You will not last a day." David gave a tired smile. "Then I will make it half a day. That is enough. At least you will be safe." Her voice sharpened. "Do you think I healed you just to watch you die in the dirt? I carried you from the battlefield. I tended your wounds. I stood against my people for you. And you believe I will simply let you go?" David was silent, struck by the intensity in her words. Lina's chest rose and fell quickly, but she forced her voice calm again. "I do not regret saving you, but do not speak as if your life means less than mine. It does not." For a long time, neither spoke. The night stretched on, the sound of soldiers faint outside the village walls. At last, David said softly, "If they search this house, what will you do?" "I will protect you." She answered simply. He shook his head. "And who will protect you then?" She did not reply. Her silence was answer enough. The following day brought more tension. Soldiers marched closer, stopping at houses, speaking with villagers, searching for weapons or hidden enemies. David stayed low inside the healer's home. his breath held. Whenever footsteps passed near, Lena moved through the day with calm patience, treating the sick who came to her as though nothing was wrong. But whenever she glanced toward the door, David saw the fear she tried to hide. By evening, David made his choice. He could not stay, no matter what Lena said, while she prepared herbs by the fire. He rose slowly, using the wall for support. His leg burned, but it held his weight. He moved toward the doorway, each step heavy, but determined. "Where are you going?" Lena's voice cut through the quiet. David froze. She was already watching him, her eyes sharp. "I cannot stay," he said. "If they find me here, they will destroy everything. I will not let that happen." Lena stood, her hands clenched at her sides. "If you go, you will die. Then let it be my choice," David said firmly. "Not yours, not the elders, not the soldiers. Mine." For the first time since he had met her, he saw her mask break. Her calm face trembled. Her eyes glimmered with unspoken words. She took a step toward him, then stopped, as though unsure what she wanted to do. "You are stubborn," she whispered. David managed a weak smile. "So are you?" The silence stretched again, filled with everything neither of them could say. Finally, Lena let out a slow breath. "Then if you must leave," she said, "you will not leave alone." David stared at her in surprise. "You would come with me into the forest with soldiers hunting us?" Lena nodded once, her voice steady again. "Yes, I saved your life. I will not let you throw it away now. If you walk into danger, I walk with you." The weight of her words settled on him. He wanted to argue, to protect her from risk, but he saw the resolve in her eyes. It was unshakable. The decision was made. As the night deepened, they gathered what little they could carry: herbs, bandages, a flask of water. David tightened the strap of his torn armor, ignoring the pain in his leg. Lena wrapped herself in a dark cloak, her silver eyes glowing faintly beneath the hood. Outside, the sound of soldiers still drifted on the air, but inside the small stone house, a promise had been made. They would face the danger together. The night air was cold as David and Lena stepped out of the healer's house. The village lay silent, its stone walls glowing faintly from the crystals that burned within. Most of the people were asleep, though a few eyes watched from the shadows. None spoke, but their silence was heavy with disapproval. To them, Lena was walking the wrong path, risking everything for the life of one human. David felt the weight of their stares as he leaned on a wooden staff Lena had given him for support. Each step sent pain through his wounded leg, but he forced himself forward. He could not let her bear all the burden. They left the village by a narrow trail, moving toward the thick forest that stretched beyond the hills. The trees rose tall and dark, their branches twisted together like shields against the stars. The path was uneven, scattered with roots and stones. Every step tested David's strength. Lena walked close beside him, her eyes scanning the shadows. She carried no weapon, only her healer's satchel, yet her presence felt steady, like a shield stronger than iron. For a long time they walked without words, the night filled only with the sound of leaves rustling in the wind. But David's thoughts would not stay silent. "You should not have come," he said finally, his breath heavy. "It was my choice to leave, not yours." Lena did not look at him. "I told you, I will not let you throw away the life I saved. You may lose yours." David pressed. Her voice was calm but firm. "Then let me choose, as you chose. My duty is to heal, but tonight my duty is also to you." David wanted to argue, but the strength in her words silenced him. She was not a woman who spoke carelessly. Each word she gave was truth. The forest thickened as they went deeper, the ground soft with moss, the air damp and cool. David's leg throbbed with pain, but Lena's hand on his arm kept him steady every time he faltered. She guided him forward without complaint. Hours passed. The night stretched long. Just when David began to believe they might escape unseen, the sound of voices broke through the stillness, harsh and sharp. Not far behind, Lena stopped, her eyes narrowing. Soldiers. David's chest tightened. He could hear the clink of armor, the steady tramp of boots. The enemy had entered the forest, searching. We need to hide," David said quickly. Lena guided him off the path, leading him into thicker trees where shadows lay heavy. They crouched behind a fallen trunk. Breath held as the soldiers' voices drew closer. A group of 5 passed, their torches casting sharp light across the dark. They spoke in rough tones, searching for tracks. One bent low, touching the ground. David's heart pounded as he saw the soldier point to the dirt. "They have our trail." Lena whispered. There was no more time for hiding. She pulled David to his feet, urging him forward. They ran, or rather stumbled, as quickly as David's wound allowed. Branches snapped underfoot, the shouts of soldiers rising behind them. David's leg burned with each step, but fear gave him strength. Still, he knew he could not outrun trained men on strong legs. "Leave me," he gasped. "You can escape alone." Lena gripped his arm tighter. "No." The soldiers gained ground. Soon the glow of torches flashed through the trees behind them. David's breath came in ragged gasps. His vision blurred. He stumbled once, nearly falling. But Lena caught him before he hit the ground. Her strength surprised him, her slender frame steady as stone. The forest opened into a clearing with a narrow river running through it. The water shimmered under the faint light of the stars. The sound of rushing current filled the air. "They will trap us here," David said. Lena's eyes scanned the river, then the trees. Her hands moved to her satchel. "Not if we fight." David gave a weak laugh. "I can barely stand." "Fight with what?" "With what I have," she answered. The soldiers burst into the clearing, torches raised, weapons ready. They spread in a half circle, blocking escape. Their leader stepped forward, eyes fixed on David. "A human," he spat, "and our healer protects him." Betrayal. David moved in front of Lena, though he could hardly lift his arm. "If you want someone, take me. She has done nothing wrong." But Lena stepped past him, her silver eyes glowing fiercely. She raised both hands, and from her satchel drew two crystals that pulsed with light. The soldiers paused, uncertain. Lena's voice rang clear. "You will not take him." The crystals shone brighter, casting beams of pale light across the clearing. The air vibrated with strange energy. Lena's people were known as healers, but few outsiders knew the depth of their art. Healing was not only for mending flesh, it was also for bending the flow of life itself. She pressed the crystals together, and a wave of light rippled outward. The soldiers staggered, clutching their heads as weakness spread through their limbs. Their torches fell to the ground, hissing as they hit the river's edge. David stared in shock. He had never seen power like this. Lena's hands trembled, but she stood firm. "Run," she urged him. David leaned on his staff, forcing his body forward. Lena stayed close, guiding him toward the far side of the clearing. The soldiers struggled, fighting against the wave of weakness. One managed to lift his weapon and charge, but David swung his staff with all his remaining strength, striking the man across the chest. The soldier fell, groaning. The others tried to rise, but Lena sent another pulse of light through the clearing. The men collapsed, too weak to follow. By the time the glow faded, David and Lena had crossed the river, the current washing cold round their legs. They stumbled up the opposite bank, hearts pounding, breaths heavy. Only when the forest closed round them again did they stop. David leaned against a tree, his chest heaving. "You saved us," he said, still staring at her in disbelief. Lena placed the crystals back in her satchel, her face pale with strain. "I did what I must." David looked at her, his voice low. "You risked everything for me." Her eyes met his, calm but fierce. "I told you, I will not leave you." The words struck him deeper than any wound. She had chosen to stand with him, even against her own people, even against soldiers trained for war. As the night wind moved through the trees, David realized something. This was no longer only about survival. Something stronger was forming between them, something worth more than any battle won or lost. He would not let her sacrifice be in vain, and he swore to himself, no matter the cost, he would protect Lena as she had protected him. The forest around them was quiet again, but the peace felt thin, as if danger still watched from the shadows. David leaned against a tree, his wounded leg heavy, his staff planted in the dirt. For balance, Lena stood near him, her breathing steady though her face was pale. The crystals she had used still glimmered faintly inside her satchel, their light fading. David studied her in silence. He wanted to speak, to thank her, to tell her how much her choice meant to him, but the words caught in his throat. She had risked her place among her people, her safety, and her life, all to protect him. That was something he could never repay. At last he found his voice. You should not waste your strength for me. I'm only one man. Lena looked at him, her silver eyes calm but firm. And you are alive because of me. That means your life has worth in mine. Her words settled over him like a weight and a gift at once. He wanted to argue, but deep inside he knew there was truth in them. The night passed slowly as they moved deeper into the forest. David forced himself onward. Though each step was pain, he knew if he stopped too long, soldiers might find them. Again, Lena walked beside him, sometimes guiding, sometimes steadying him with her hands. Her touch was gentle but strong, and it gave him courage to keep going. At dawn the sky lightened. The forest thinned until the trees opened into rolling hills. From the ridge they could see the wide valley below, mist rising from the river that cut across it. Beyond the water, far in the distance, smoke curled into the air. David narrowed his eyes. That is the camp of my people, he said. If I could reach it, I can warn them of the enemy moving this way. Lena studied the horizon. It is far, and your leg is weak. The soldiers will not stop hunting us to reach your camp. We must pass through the old ruins in the valley. David frowned. Ruins, they are forbidden to my people, she said softly. A place of broken stone, where the past still lingers. But it may hide us better than the open fields. David gave a short nod. Then that is where we go. They descended the hills, moving slowly, but with purpose. Hours passed as the sun climbed higher, its warmth cutting through the morning chill. David's strength began to fade, and Lena often had to support him. Yet not once did she complain. By midday they reached the ruins. Ancient walls of dark stone rose from the earth, cracked and leaning, half covered in moss and vines. Broken towers reached toward the sky like jagged teeth. The air was cooler here, and a strange silence hung over the place. David felt uneasy, but he said nothing. Lena walked with care, her eyes watchful. She led him into the shadow of a fallen arch where they could rest unseen. For the first time in hours, David lowered himself to the ground. He leaned back against the stone, closing his eyes. His body screamed with exhaustion. When he opened his eyes again, Lena was kneeling before him, unwrapping clean cloth from her satchel. You should not waste supplies, he murmured. You are bleeding again, she answered simply. I will not let the wound claim you. She worked in silence, cleaning and binding his leg. Her touch was steady, her hands moving with the skill of long practice. David watched her face as she bent to her task. There was focus there, but also something softer, something she tried to hide. When she finished, she looked up, meeting his eyes. For a long moment neither spoke. The silence between them was not heavy now, but deep, carrying words unspoken. David broke it at last. You saved me more times than I can count. I have nothing to give you in return. Lena shook her head. You gave me something already. You saw me when others only saw duty. You said I was beautiful, not for what I could do, but for who I am. Do you know how rare that is in my world? David's chest tightened. He remembered the night he had spoken those words, never expecting how much they might mean. I only spoke the truth, he said, for the first time since they fled. Lena's lips curved into a smile, faint but real. Her eyes softened, and in that moment the weight of fear and danger seemed to lift, but the peace did not last. The sound of footsteps echoed through the ruins. Harsh voices followed. The soldiers had found their trail again. David struggled to his feet, leaning hard on his staff. We cannot run this time. Lena rose beside him, her hand on her satchel. Then we stand. The enemy entered the broken courtyard, spreading out among the stones. Their leader stepped forward, his voice sharp. The healer and the human. Your escape ends here. David's grip tightened on his staff. He knew he had little strength left, but he would not give up. not while Lena stood with him. The soldiers advanced. Lena drew her crystals once more, their light bursting through the shadows. Waves of energy rolled across the courtyard, slowing the enemy's steps, weakening their limbs. But these men had prepared for her power. They carried shields of dark metal that blunted the crystals. Light, step by step, they pushed closer. David swung his staff at the first soldier who reached him, knocking the man back. Pain shot through his leg, but he stood firm. Another soldier came at him, blade flashing. David raised his staff just in time, blocking the strike. The clash rang loud in the ruins. Beside him, Lena moved with sudden speed. She pressed her crystals together, sending a narrow beam of light straight into the enemy's ranks. One man fell, then another, blinded and disoriented. The fight raged among the broken stones. David's breath came heavy, his body near its limit, yet each time he thought he might fall. Lena's voice reached him, steady and fierce, guiding him, keeping him strong. "You are not alone," she told him. Her words gave him fire. He struck again, his staff cracking against armor, forcing back another foe. Together they held their ground. Two against many. At last the soldiers began to falter. The ruins echoed with their retreating steps as those who could still stand dragged the fallen away. Soon the courtyard was empty except for David and Lena, their chests rising and falling with exhaustion. David leaned on his staff, staring at her in wonder. "We stood together, and we won." Lena's smile returned, tired but bright. "Yes, we won." He looked at her, his voice rough but true. "Then let it be known, I will never leave your side." Lena, in this galaxy or any other, for a moment her calm broke. Her eyes softened, her lips curved, and she could not hide the smile that bloomed across her face. And in that smile, David found the strength to believe that no force, no war, and no distance could break the bond now formed between them. The ruins were silent again, but the battle had taken its toll. David stood with his staff pressed to the ground, his chest heaving, sweat running down his face. His wounded leg trembled beneath him, yet he refused to fall. Beside him, Lena lowered her crystals, the light fading from her hands. Her face was pale, her body weary, but her eyes still burned with quiet strength. For a long moment they did not speak. The wind moved through the broken stones, carrying the scent of dust and smoke. Both knew the fight had only bought them time. The enemy would return with more soldiers. If they stayed, they would be trapped. David pushed himself upright, his voice firm despite his exhaustion. "We cannot stop here. We must reach my people." Lena nodded, slipping her crystals back into her satchel. "The valley is open, and your enemies will search it. But if we move now, we may still cross before nightfall." They left the ruins behind. Following a narrow path through the valley, the land stretched wide before them, the river cutting across the plains like a silver thread. Beyond the water, faint smoke rose into the sky from the campfires of David's people. The sight gave David hope. He gripped his staff tighter and pressed forward, though every step sent pain through his leg. Lena stayed close, her hand brushing his arm when he faltered, her presence steady as a shield. The day grew long as they walked. The sun burned above, and the grass whispered against their boots. Birds wheeled high in the sky, their cries sharp and distant. For hours they spoke little, saving their strength. But as the river drew near, David broke the silence. "When we reach my camp, my people may not welcome you. They may see you as an enemy." Lena's steps slowed, but her gaze did not waver. "I know. I left my home to save you. I did not expect an easy path." David looked at her, his jaw tight. "If they reject you, I will stand with you. I will not let them cast you aside." Her eyes softened at his words. "And if they ask you to choose between them and me," David stopped walking. He leaned on his staff and faced her fully. "Then I will choose what I already know. I will choose you." The air between them felt heavy, filled with meaning deeper than either could put to words. Lena lowered her eyes, but a faint smile touched her lips. They crossed the last stretch of grass and reached the riverbank. The water was swift and cold, its current pulling hard. David frowned. I cannot swim with my leg in this state. Lena studied the river, then stepped forward. She drew a crystal from her satchel and held it aloft. Light spread from her hand, forming a narrow bridge of shimmering energy across the water. David stared, astonished. You risk your strength. Again, Lena's voice was calm. Some risks are worth taking. Together they stepped onto the bridge. The light held beneath their feet, carrying them across the rushing water. When they reached the far side, the crystal dimmed and the bridge faded away. David turned to her, his voice quiet. Without you, I would not have made it this far. Lena met his gaze. And without you, I would never have known what it means to be seen. They moved on, climbing the last hill. From the top, they saw the camp spread below rows of tents, smoke rising from fires, figures moving about. The sight filled David with both relief and dread. As they descended, a group of scouts spotted them. The humans rushed forward, weapons ready, eyes wary. David raised his hand. It is I, he called. David of the Valley. I returned from battle. The scouts slowed, recognizing him, but their eyes shifted to Lena, and their grips on their weapons tightened. Who is she? One demanded. She is no human. David stood tall, leaning on his staff but unyielding. She is my ally. She saved my life more than once. Without her, I would not stand before you now. The scouts exchanged uncertain looks but said nothing more. They escorted David and Lena into the camp. Inside, the people gathered, whispers rising as they saw the alien woman walking beside their soldier. The commander, a stern man with a scarred face, stepped forward. His gaze moved from David to Lena, sharp and suspicious. Explain, he ordered. David stood firm. This is Lena. She is a healer of her people. She chose to defy her own kind to save me. She fought at my side against those who would see us destroyed. If you honor my service, you will honor her as well. The commander's eyes narrowed. And what proof do we have of her loyalty? She could be a spy. Before David could answer, Lena stepped forward. Her voice was steady, her silver eyes unflinching. I left everything I knew to protect him. If that is not proof, then nothing I say will matter. The camp grew quiet. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some doubtful, others moved. At last the commander spoke again. Then she will remain under watch until trust is earned. But know this, David. If her presence brings danger to us, the blame will be yours. David met the man's gaze without fear. I accept that. The commander gave a curt nod and stepped back. The crowd slowly dispersed, though many eyes lingered on Lena with uncertainty. That night, as the camp settled into uneasy rest, David and Lena sat together near a small fire at the edge of the tents. The stars shone above, endless and bright. David looked at her, his voice quiet. It will not be easy here. But I meant what I said. You will not face it alone. Lena's eyes reflected the firelight. For a moment she said nothing. Then she reached out and placed her hand over his. Her touch was light, yet it carried all the weight of her choice. You call me beautiful in any galaxy. She whispered. Now I believe you truly meant it. David squeezed her hand gently. I did, and I still do. For the first time in many days, Lena allowed herself to smile fully, without hiding, without fear. It was a smile of trust, of hope, of something greater than either of them had known before. The fire crackled, the stars wheeled above, and in that quiet moment, the bond they had forged through danger and sacrifice burned brighter than any war. It was a bond that no army, no fear, and no distance could ever break. And though the future remained uncertain, they both knew one truth with unshakable clarity. Together, they were stronger. Together, they would face whatever came.